بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Allah the Exalted said in the Quran in Surah Yunus, ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون الذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون لهم البشرى في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. These verses mean, surely in the afterlife, the awliya of Allah shall have no fear upon them when others are in horror, nor shall they grieve when others are suffering. Those who believed and they were God-fearing, they shall have the glad tidings in this earthly life, such as the good dreams, and in the afterlife by paradise. And amongst the awliya, may Allah raise all of their ranks and benefit us by them, is my Master As-Sayyid Ahmad Ar-Rifaa'i radiyallahu anhu. He is one of the greatest awliya of Allah and a very high-ranking descendant of our Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Indeed, the awliya of his time used to say about him, إنه أجل المشايخ إنه أجل الأولياء قدرا. They used to say, indeed, he is the greatest of the mashayikh, yani the spiritual masters, the great Sufis, and he is the most honored amongst the awliya in rank. As-Sayyid Ahmad, may Allah raise his rank and benefit us by him immensely, Allahumma ameen. He had a maternal uncle whose name was Sheikh Mansur Al-Bataihi, and he was also one of the great awliya. One time he saw the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam in his dream, and the Prophet said to him, بشر أختك بأنها تحمل بعد 40 يوما بولد يكون سيد الأولياء كما أنني سيد الأنبياء. He said, give your sister the glad tidings, the good news, that after 40 days she will conceive a son who will be the master of the awliya, yani the master of the highly righteous Muslims, just as I am the master of the prophets. The Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam also told his uncle, As-Sayyid Ahmad's uncle, Sheikh Mansur Al-Bataihi, that this child will be called Ahmad. And the Prophet told him, when he grows up, to take him to a sheikh that is called Ali Al-Qari Al-Wasiti, and to give Ahmad to him so that this sheikh would raise him, would teach him and educate him, and he would benefit through his guidance. And he told him, when you do that, continue watching over him and taking care of him. Yani, you will give him to that shaykh and he will take care of him. He will raise him, but you also, as his uncle, you also continue watching over him and taking care of him, because his uncle himself was amongst the awliya. He was a big wali, actually. And subhanallah, the matter went as the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned. 40 days after that dream, the mother of As-Sayyid Ahmad conceived As-Sayyid Ahmad. And upon his birth, his uncle, Shaykh Mansour, raised him with excellent care, yani from that point. And As-Sayyid Ahmad grew up in a really good way, and he strove in the religious knowledge, doing righteous deeds and going up and up in rank until he became the spiritual master and guide of the awliya of his time. That's why the awliya of his time said he was the best of them, like the highest ranking wali on earth at that time. Subhanallah. And amongst those awliya that lived during his time was a Shaykh As-Sayyid Abdul Qadir Al-Jaylani. May Allah raise his rank. He was in Baghdad, and he is another highly righteous Muslim and scholar, also amongst the great descendants of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. So he was in Baghdad while our Master Ahmad Ar-Rifaa lived in a province called Wasit, which is about 500 kilometers from Baghdad. And our Master As-Sayyid Ahmad, he lived and was later buried there in a village called Abida. As-Sayyid Ahmad, may Allah raise his rank, he was a scholar. He was also a muhaddith, a big scholar of hadith, a mufassir, a Quran interpreter, a man full of piety, and someone very compassionate for the creation of Allah. The pious people, those of his time and those after him, they said that his humbleness was profound. And people used to use him as an example of true humility. He was amongst the truthful Sufis, yani a man who acted in accordance with the religious law while opposing his own desires. And he really opposed his desires. This is known if you hear about some of the matters that happened with him and what he used to do. And if Allah grants us, then in future classes we can mention some of his statements and some of the benefits that revolve around his life, subhanallah, and they are so many. He was not someone that followed his nafs in matters of food, drink, clothing, or anything else. Rather, they said he would limit himself to only that which preserved the health of his body, in terms of eating, drinking, and clothing, all while striving hard in the worship of Allah. He had a very, very high determination, fulfilling the obligations, of course, staying away from the sins, and increasing in the optional deeds. And as we said, السيد أحمد الرفاعي أمدنا الله تعالى بأمداده, he had a great share of humility, humbleness, to the point that he became proverbial for his humbleness. Like, he was used as an example. If a person wanted to draw someone's attention to humbleness, they would use him as an example. And likewise, the mashayikh, the spiritual masters of his tariqah, the Rifaa'i tariqah, which is this great Sufi order, if you want, they have something that is indeed a great distinction about them, which is that they are known amongst the Sufis for their humbleness. And Allah the Exalted honored him with many karamat, extraordinary matters. Amongst them was that the number of his khulafa, his successors, and the successors of his successors in his tariqah, they reached 180,000. Subhanallah. And Allah granted him an astonishing matter, which is that more than 20,000 awliya emerged during his lifetime. They were his direct followers. 20,000 awliya emerged during his lifetime who were his direct followers, meaning that they reached this very high status through having him as their shaykh and their leader. May Allah raise his rank. After his death, many karamas, extraordinary and astonishing matters, appeared through his followers. For example, and this is famous about them, they would hold hadras, spiritual gatherings, where they would do dhikr, they would mention Allah correctly and sincerely. After they lit up a grand fire, so they would light up a grand fire and they would start mentioning Allah the Exalted, and they would enter the blazing fire. This is very famous about the Rifa'is. They would go inside of the fire, stand inside of it, and they would mention Allah the Exalted. And neither them nor their clothing would be harmed. Yani they wouldn't be harmed by the fire. Subhanallah. And this is not a story that is made up. This is well known about the Rifa'is. Even until our time nowadays, there are Rifa'is around the world that have very, very special occurrences. Allah grants them very special things, and they have special protection from Allah Ta'ala. And because of their shaykh, a lot of astonishing things appear on them, subhanallah. And this is known, for even nowadays this happens. Also, they would enter hot ovens, like a big oven, not like the oven that we usually use in the kitchen at home. No, this is a big oven, really big, where one side of the oven had a baker baking like bread, for example, and the other side of the oven, it would have one of the followers of السيد أحمد Ar-Rifaa, who is upon the path of Ar-Rifaa. He would be sleeping inside in the heat of this very, very hot oven, without being burned or harmed. And he would sleep there a very normal sleep. Subhanallah. And histories and the chronicles and the narrations of the scholars and the historians, they affirm these things. These things are confirmed. Yani they're well-known, established events. They're not fabrications. And these matters are very famous and known about the Rifa'is. Subhanallah. and they are the followers of السيد أحمد Ar-Rifaa. May Allah raise their ranks. As for Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah protect us from his misguidance. Out of envy, he used to speak ill of the Rifa'is. He knew about them. He used to say, these Rifa'iyah, they use tricks so that the fire would not burn them. He went on to say, the Rifa'is, they have a substance like a cream or something like that they use on their skin so that the fire does not affect them. He said that's how they go into the fire and the fire does not burn them. Because it was well known, it was known that they go into the fire and it was known that they didn't get burned. But he was lying because they didn't have a cream or a substance that they put on their skin. Had there truly been such a substance, he would have openly used it with his own followers, right? He would have said, I challenge you, O Rifa'iyah, you are using deception. I and my group will use the same substance and enter the fire so that you can see that what you are upon is nothing but deception. But he didn't do that because he was a liar. And we seek refuge in Allah the Exalted. Ibn Taymiyyah and his followers, they were enemies of the awliya. Even till today, they are enemies of the awliya. They are enemies of the highly righteous Muslims. And they have so many things that go against the religion, him and his followers. One of them is they deny that a Muslim can ask Allah by the status of a prophet, a righteous slave, or a good deed. Subhanallah. And this is something that is known from the religion that you can do. The Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, he taught us to ask by his status. And he also taught us to ask by the status of the good deeds and the status of those who ask Allah. These are mentioned in the hadiths of the Prophet. And they also deny at-tabarruk, seeking the blessings from the honorable traces of the Prophet or the prophets, like the hairs of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that exist in different places around the world. And these hairs have been well documented from generation to generation, from the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam until our time nowadays. And it's known in Al-Bukhari and Muslim that the Prophet shaved his hair and he distributed it amongst the companions. This is something that is known. And you don't distribute hair so that it can be eaten, obviously. And so it's very clear that he distributed his hair for the barakah, for the blessing that is in it, so that it can remain in his ummah, in his nation. And in Topkapi Museum, they have hairs. In Egypt, in different places in Egypt, they have hairs of the Prophet. In Lebanon, they have many hairs of the Prophet. In many countries around the world, subhanallah, they have hairs of the Prophet that were taken care of and documented, and they have a chain, like this hair was taken from so-and-so, who took it from so-and-so, all the way back to the Prophet. These traces are very precious, and so they were carefully documented. And subhanallah, this is besides that Ibn Taymiyyah and his followers, they do not believe in Allah correctly. They liken Allah to the creation. They believe Allah is a huge body in the sky or sitting on the throne. And they believe that Allah has a shape and a size and an image. and they say that he moves and he goes up and he comes down and he speaks with a language. A'udhu billah. All of that is not true. Allah is not like the creation, and He exists without a place and without a direction, and He's not a body, and He's not attributed with bodily attributes, and His attributes are not like the attributes of the creation, and His speech, His kalam, it's not like the speech of the creation. It's not Arabic, it's not English, it's not any language. It's one speech that has no beginning and no end. It's not like the speech of the creation at all. And As-Sayyid Ahmad, may Allah raise his rank, he said many golden statements in the creed. And this is something else that really highlights like the difference of the Rifa'is when compared to other Sufi tariqas. In general, they have really adhered to the creed in a very special way and a very strong way. I've never in my life heard of someone who claims to be Rifai and they liken Allah to the creation, for example. I've never seen that or heard about it even. That there's someone that claims to be Rifai and they liken God to the creation, or they think God is in the sky, or they think that God can be imagined, or any of these kufr beliefs that take the person out of Islam. So it's something very special that Allah granted Al-Rifa'iyya, which is that they hold fast to the correct belief of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah. One of those precious statements that As-Sayyid Ahmad, may Allah raise his rank, said is غاية المعرفة بالله الإيقان بوجوده تعالى بلا كيف ولا مكان, which means the extent that one would reach in knowing Allah is for that person to have the certainty, to be certain that Allah exists without a how and without a place. As-Sayyid Ahmad, this highly ranked Muslim and scholar with an illuminated heart, and he's one of the descendants of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, he said, this is the extent that one would reach in knowing Allah. This is the most that one would reach in truly knowing their Lord. For them to be certain, without any doubt, that Allah exists without a place and without a how. That Allah is not in the sky. That Allah is not in a direction. Because He created the 6 directions and He existed before them. That Allah the Exalted does not have a how. You don't say, how is He? You say this about the creation, but you don't say this about the Creator. Because whatever you answer how to is an attribute of a creation. You would say, oh, He's like this and He's like that. He's tall, or He's short, or He's wide, or His depth is like this, and His height is like this, and His size is like that. You don't say this about Allah though. So Allah exists without a how and without a place. The one who truly understands this, they have reached the extent in knowing Allah. Because Allah is not something that can be imagined. Because He's not a body and He's not a shape. He's not something that has a picture or an image or a color. And there was also another great wali named As-Sayyid Ahmad Al-Badawi. And I'm sure you hear us mentioning the names of these 3 awliya that we mentioned so far at the end of our lessons, right? As-Sayyid Ahmad Al-Badawi, may Allah raise his rank, he came about 100 years after our Master Ar-Rifaa. And السيد أحمد Al-Badawi was also a descendant of our Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And subhanallah, if you look at history, you would see that many of the awliya, not all of them, but you would see that many of them are descendants of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, and many of the great scholars. السيد أحمد Al-Badawi, he lived in Tanta in Egypt, and he's buried there now. May Allah raise his rank. He was amongst the very, very highly ranked awliya. He had memorized the Quran, and he was able to recite it in all 7 recitations. And he was a zahid, an ascetic, someone who is detached from the worldly matters. And he never got married, subhanallah. He used to say, أنا أتزوج الحور العين. I will marry the حور العين in paradise. And it was mentioned about him that he was physically very handsome, very beautiful. And he also had many karamat, extraordinary matters. It was mentioned about السيد أحمد Al-Badawi that his karamat, his extraordinary matters, they were as clear as the sun. Very, very clear. One example is that some Muslims were held captive in the lands of the Franks. And subhanallah, he extended his hand from a window and he rescued those people that were held captive. And this is something extraordinary. It's not something normal that a person would extend their hand from a window and rescue some Muslims who were held captive in a very far away place. And this is a story that is famous in Egypt. It's well known about this noble, high-ranking wali. And he had other karamas. And these awliya, as our teacher said, السيد أحمد Ar-Rifaa and السيد أحمد Al-Badawi, they were characterized by deep humbleness, as all of the highly righteous slaves of Allah are. All of the awliya have humbleness, and they are very humble, even if some of them are very strict, because this is something that many people, it seems, especially nowadays, they don't expect at times for the awliya to be very strict. Very, very strict. Very firm. But that doesn't deny or go against their humbleness, because they are strict when they need to be, and they are very humble when it's called for. One time our Master Ahmad Ar-Rifaa, may Allah raise his rank, he entered his zawiyah, his spiritual center, if you want. The zawiyah is a large place where many people would gather and attend. And when he was there, he found a man from the Sabi'ah. He saw him there. And As-Sabi'ah, they are a misguided sect who hated the Muslims. Subhanallah. They hated the Muslims so much that they wouldn't even eat bread that was baked by a Muslim. So As-Sayyid Ahmad, he's known for his humbleness, and he's very intelligent, and he does things with a good intention to attract people to what is better and to the truth. So this man wasn't Muslim. So to show him the beauty of Al-Islam, what did our Master Ahmad do? He said to him, أجدك تعبا. You look tired. I find you tired. So As-Sayyid Ahmad went and he brought that man some flour and some water and baking tools. And this man, the Sabi'i, he made the bread with his own hands and he ate it. Then As-Sayyid Ahmad sent someone with him to guide him across the Tigris River so that he would find his way back to his family. So when that man reached his family, they asked him, كيف كانت رحلتك? How was your trip? How did everything go? So he told them everything that happened, and subhanallah, they were very affected by the treatment of As-Sayyid Ahmad Ar-Rifaa, and so they all embraced al-Islam. And he too, that man himself, became a Muslim. Then they all returned, they came to As-Sayyid Ahmad Ar-Rifaa, and they became his followers. Subhanallah. These are some of the fruits of humbleness. The Prophet ﷺ said to a group of companions, and this group of companions, they were not amongst the elites. They were not amongst the elites of the companions like Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali. They were not this caliber of companions. Rather, they were other companions. The Prophet said to them, إِنَّكُمْ لَتَغْفُلُونَ عَنْ أَفْضَلِ الْعِبَادَةِ التَّوَاضُعِ. He said to them, indeed, you are heedless of the best form of worship, or one of the best forms of worship, humbleness. Now, as for those elite, high-ranking companions, they were extremely humble, like Abu Bakr and Umar and so on. They were very humble. And to show that, one time our master Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah raise his rank, he was heading to Jumu'ah prayer, and he had his prayer clothing on. And he passed by the house of Al-Abbas, may Allah raise his rank, and he is the paternal uncle of the Prophet. And so when he passed by his house, some blood from 2 chicks, and this blood was mixed with water, it dripped on him from a rooftop spout or gutter, a mizab, if you know what that is. It carries off the rainwater. The Kaaba has something like that, a mizab, and also some houses, you would see that they have a mizab, something that sticks out and it carries the rainwater down. So what did he do? He went back home and he changed his clothes. And he said, أزيلوا هذا الميزاب. Remove this mizab. So Al-Abbas, he heard what our master Umar said. So he said to him, يا عمر هذا الميزاب الرسول أقامه. O Umar, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the one who placed that mizab there. So when Umar heard that, he said, يعاد كما كان وتطلع على ظهري وتعيده. He said, then it shall be restored as it was, and you will climb on my back, and you will return it. So our master Umar insisted until Al-Abbas accepted and climbed on his back and reinstalled the mizab that the Prophet ﷺ had put there. And this shows the humbleness that our master Umar, may Allah raise his rank, had. And our master Ahmad Ar-Rifaa, he was known in his time as someone who had reached the highest level of humbleness with Allah's creation. Despite that, despite the level and high rank that he had, and all the good things he was busy with, he held 2 religious lessons every day. He was a scholar as well. And he held a massive public session every Friday. And this was a session where he admonished and he advised. And it really, really had a big effect on the hearts of people. It was a session that was attended by over 100,000 people. Over 100,000 people would attend this weekly session of his. And on one occasion, during a single session, 8,000 kuffar accepted Islam, because some of the non-Muslims would attend his sessions as well, from how much goodness would take place during these sessions and how his words would affect the hearts of people. In a single session, 8,000 kuffar embraced al-Islam, and 40,000 heedless Muslims repented, and 5 Muslims died from the intensity of the emotional impact that came from the beauty of his words. Radiyallahu anhu. May Allah raise his rank and benefit us greatly by him. We ask Allah the Exalted to support us through Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, and the highly righteous Muslims amongst the Rifa'iyah and the Qadiriyah and the Shadhiliyah and the Naqshbandiyah and others amongst the awliya of Allah. And we ask Allah Ta'ala to make us amongst the humble slaves. Allahumma ameen. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.